Welcome to The Burn with Ryan and Van Deaver, presented to you by Hot Zone Sports. The information that you need to know, built with you in mind, for the people, by the people, and with the people. Join the Hot Zone Sports community today. Make sure you like the videos, subscribe, and share it with your friends. On today's episode, boy, oh boy, we had a lot of barn burners in the college football and NFL football world. You had Georgia take down Mississippi State, where Carson Beck just went off. You had Texas take down Oklahoma in what was not even a close contest, just Texas asserting their dominance, showing why they are the number one ranked team, and Oklahoma showing how they continue to struggle on offense. You had LSU take down Ole Miss. LSU proved that a 57-yard kick in overtime doesn't matter for a damn thing if you can chuck it for Mr. Nussmeier. You had Oregon beat Ohio State. And boy, does Will Howard feel like a complete dingus. Ryan Day had to have told him, do not waste any time on this clock. We do not have a lot of time. But what does he do? He goes and scrambles. He thinks his legs are down so that they can call a timeout. That's not the way it went down. He goes and scrambles. Game over. It's okay, Ohio State fans. I know how you feel. I really do. I saw him play at Kansas State. He did the same stupid knucklehead bullshit. Those are just a couple of games in college football that were just absolutely nuts. But this next weekend is going to be even more crazy. Oh wait, I can't forget. There was the Colorado Buffaloes. The Colorado Buffaloes lost to the Kansas State Wildcats. I did see this coming. I did thought that this was going to happen. But what I didn't think was going to happen was that the Buffaloes were going to be out. Buffaloes were not going to have their top three wide receivers. I didn't predict Travis Hunter was going to go down. But hey, I'll give it to him. If it wouldn't have been for that pass interference, not sure if you saw that wink there. I don't know. Was it a pass interference? Sure looked like it wasn't a catchable ball and it was going out of bounds. Just throwing it out there. Agree or not, that's what ended up happening. The games are rigged. I know. We all say the games are rigged. Whatever. But anyway, let's get on to the NFL. What is up with Nick Sirianni? Sirianni is the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they have more talent on the offensive and defensive side of the ball than a lot of the teams in the NFC. But let's just keep it real here. Nick Sirianni, really, he is a massive piece of shit. You're screaming at the fans after squeaking by one of the worst teams in the NFL in the Cleveland Browns. You were yelling at your own fans at home, like, how big of a moron do you have to be to yell at your own fans? You're already on the hot seat as the coach. You have been since last season when reports came out that you and Jalen Hurts aren't on even in the same galaxy as to being on the same page. That obviously hasn't changed. There's the rumor mill going around to where it's been the same, if not worse. And now you talk shit to your fans who pay money to come into these games to cheer their team on and watch their favorite team. Yeah, if you were away from home playing a game, I get it. The competitive nature of the opposing team's fans getting under your skin, we've seen it 1,000 times. I would give you a pass for that. But once again, you were playing at home. You're paying customers who keep the building running. And you're going to be a complete dick and talk shit to them like, yeah, okay, that's going to end well. You're struggling to beat Deshaun Watson and the Browns. Once again, I will reiterate the fact they are one of the worst teams in the NFL. By the way, sidebar, Cleveland Browns, can you just start Jameis Winston or DTR? Like, seriously, pull the damn Band-Aid off. I digress. But this game was completely unwatchable. If you were a Browns fan or an Eagles fan, man, I feel for you. This was an ugly, ugly game. But really, Nick Sirianni, they're booing you for a reason. But you're going to go out of your way and do this. I get it. Philly fans aren't the easiest to deal with. Whether it's the Eagles, whether it's the Phillies, name a team. Whether it's the 76ers, that's no excuse to lose your composure. They are your fans, whether you like it or not. They just are sick and tired of having this product that is shoved down their throats that is complete garbage. Any fans in the NFL would be booing in this same situation. I mean, at one point in the broadcast, Jonathan Vilma, legendary player, was on the broadcast and he said, I don't even understand why Philadelphia is booing him. Like, are you that out of touch? Ever since Shane Steichen left to go be the Colts head coach, the Eagles have struggled mightily on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, when Vilma made that statement, I'm pretty sure the Eagles were beating the Browns by 3 points. They were beating them by 3 points, and the Browns were driving. It looked like they were going to lose this game. What Vilma does not understand is the fact that it's not one particular play or one half or one quarter that the Eagles are playing. It's about the overall product. The Eagles are just a shitty team right now. And as a broadcaster, you would think you would notice this type of garbage product that they're putting on the field. Eagles fans are smart enough to know what a good product looks like because they went to the Super Bowl just a few years ago. And they know what a absolutely horrendous product looks like, which is the present Eagles franchise. Besides a few plays that the Eagles made on Sunday, the offense was completely putrid. Once again, at this point, it's hard for them to even get drives put together. It's horrendous. It's hard to watch. Enter any phrase that you want. I mean, Jalen Hurts in particular, his accuracy is down, and he just gets sacked way too much. He will literally run himself into sacks. But for Sirianni to go after these fans, I get it. You're amped up. But that's not a good look, man. I mean, just go and Google how much it costs for fans to purchase tickets in the lower bowl. Like, it's not cheap. It's not cheap even a little bit. Even if scalpers were still allowed, it wouldn't be cheap to begin with. Like, if you're Jeffrey Lurie, yeah, we're having a chat. The fans are allowed to boo. This is one of the more weak-ass moves I've seen from a head coach in recent memory. They're booing you for the garbage product that you're putting out there. Like, yeah, they're allowed to do what they want. They're allowed to boo. If they want to boo, they can boo. If they want to boo you for your shitty ass haircut, then that's what they can do. They can chastise you all game long because they paid tickets to go into the game. That move to scream and talk crap to the fans is just, call me a fan apologist all you want, but when the media talks crap on the fans, like the fans are who is consuming your content, like they pay your bills. I despise how fans are treated sometimes. It's despicable. Like they don't even matter. But as a coach, you got to take that heat. You got to suck it up and just go to the locker room. And I really didn't want to touch on this part, but it needs to be talked about. Bringing your kids into the press conference to be able to soften the blow that you're going to receive from the local reporters and the national reporters for the antics that you pulled during the end of the game. Like, dude, just grow up, take the heat, answer the questions, suck it up, and move on. You're a coach that makes millions and millions of dollars in the National Football League, so you really need to start acting like it. This isn't the first time this has happened for him, because back in 2022, the Colts played the Eagles. The Colts were really, really bad. They defeated the Colts 17-16. Yeah. And Sirianni decided to chirp back the Colts fans, where things got a little too heated. And in the post-game press conference, he said he did it for Frank Reich. I don't give a shit who you did it for. You shouldn't be chirping at the fans like that. You shouldn't be letting these fans who work in manufacturing facilities and Family Dollars get under your skin like that. To be able to defend a coach who had recently been fired, Frank Reich, to me is just a little weird. Like, I don't know, it's just weird, man. But I also understood, because the two coaches had a very close relationship, and Frank Reich, he had just gotten fired from the Colts organization, so it was just weird. I mean, comment down below if you didn't think it was weird. But that wasn't the only circumstance. When the Eagles faced off against the Chiefs last year and ended up winning that game, I don't know if it was retribution on his mind going on since they lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I don't think beating the Chiefs in a regular season game is going to give your team any kind of revenge. If they had any on their minds, when you saw Sirianni in the tunnel talking shit to Chiefs fans, saying, I don't hear you talking anymore, and then screams at the top of the lungs, see ya! Like, that's just weird and erratic behavior for a head coach to be acting in this type of way. You don't really see behavior like this coming from a head coach. You see it from a player, and that would justify the means, but they're on the field, they're playing the game, not from a head coach that's supposed to be leading an NFC preseason favorite. Just imagine Andy Reid doing something like this to the Chiefs fans, or in a tunnel saying, see ya! Like, dude, come on, get real. Stop acting like a clown. Did you know the Dallas Cowboys are terrible? Yeah, They are actually terrible. Just when you thought the Dallas Cowboys couldn't get any worse, they go on and they lose 47-9. The worst loss in AT&T Stadium history and the fifth worst franchise loss ever. Did anybody really expect the Cowboys to come into the season and blow off the freaking doors and be Super Bowl favorites? No, absolutely not. They didn't do a damn thing when it came to free agency. They didn't address their running back need through the NFL draft or free agency. And now they're one of the most inept teams in the National Football League. This is coming after Jerry Jones says that the Dallas Cowboys were all in. We all knew that the Dallas Cowboys were not all in. The only thing they were all in on was giving everybody on the staff a 1 year to prove it. But even if you walked into the stadium on week 1 with the same team from last season, you would have still been inept. You would have been in still water. Instead, the Cowboys had losses on the offensive line, the secondary, all over the place. And they didn't address any of those issues. So here we are. The Cowboys just had the fifth worst loss in franchise history, and there is no light at the end of this tunnel. Put it lightly, the Detroit Lions are a blueprint as to what the Dallas Cowboys have wanted to be for years. Tough, gritty, explosive, capable at quarterback. Yeah, I said it. Dak Prescott has not proven a damn thing. What he has proven is that when it comes to important games, he will become a shadow of himself. He will not be anything that you can rely on. Nobody on the Lions team is overpaid. You can actually make a point that many players are underpaid. According to the market value, the Lions offensive line had 2 touches and a target. These were intentional plays where they were involved. It wasn't just pouncing on a fumble. The Lions in this game wanted to go out of their way to embarrass the Dallas Cowboys. The Lions had no respect for the Cowboys whatsoever. They were doing flea flickers. They were getting offensive linemen involved in the passing game. I mean, this is the type of gamesmanship you will see little kids draw up in the backyard, but this was an actual NFL game. The Lions flexed their muscles for all of the world to see, and what you saw yesterday was an embarrassment to the Cowboys organization. They got completely run over. They got out physicaled in every aspect, out coached in every aspect of the game. At this point, you can't take the Cowboys seriously. Their owner, Jerry Jones, celebrated his 82nd birthday yesterday. He is now the oldest owner / GM in all of the NFL. And in the last few years, when the NFC has been down, yeah, they won games. But it didn't matter when it came to the playoffs. The Cowboys had a time frame to where they could actually do something. It was their time to shine, their time to get to the Lombardi Trophy. But that time is now past. The Cowboys are far from a playoff team, yet a Super Bowl contender. So the old montage, them boys, they're not them boys. They might be the boys, I'm not sure. But now all of these teams that were young, like the Lions, Packers, 49ers, Rams, they were rebuilding. Chicago didn't have a quarterback. Minnesota was trying to find their quarterback of the future. They have all now grown into forces to be reckoned with that are taking the NFC, and now the top of the NFC that can compete with the AFC over. And all the while, the Cowboys have gotten worse by losing players to free agency, overpaying players, and keeping a subpar coaching staff. Yes, Mike McCarthy should have been fired last season. All of which Jerry Jones has his fingerprints on. The more Jerry gets his hands dirty for the Cowboys, the further they get from playing in January. Being an owner and a GM is never going to work in the NFL. And it has been proven once again with the Dallas Cowboys. How is it that the Eagles have made so many roster moves, and they have a hell of a roster, but are under the cap? Same for the Ravens, the Chiefs. Dak got a monster contract, but once again, we're seeing that the misery of the Cowboys fans are taking the brunt of that payday. Dak has not proven anything. For the past 5 years, he has been the same guy, a guy you cannot rely on, a guy when you are put in a tough spot is going to turn the ball over. And with a team that doesn't have a running game whatsoever this year, you're going to rely on Dak Prescott even more. And what does that say for the Cowboys? That says that Dak Prescott is going to have a lot of turnovers this year if you are going to solely rely on his production. I mean, really, all you have to do to piss off a Cowboys fan at this point is yell the numbers 1996. That is how long the entire organization has been inept. From Tony Romo to Dak Prescott and other quarterbacks in between. It's been a revolving door of average. And when you look at the schedule is not going to get any easier for the Cowboys. So I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to wins. I mean, if you look at the Washington Redskins, the Commanders. When you look at the Commanders, you got Jaden Daniels just tearing it up. They actually competed with the Ravens. It was a pretty damn good game. What would happen? Not even going to get into it. The Cowboys are going to struggle the rest of the season. That is blatantly obvious. Expect more TikToks and reels and shorts of Cowboys fans breaking TVs because that is in the Cowboys' future. The Chicago Bears look like the real deal, unlike the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I know they have not played the most difficult schedule. They beat Carolina. They beat the Jaguars this week. Not the greatest defenses, not going up the greatest offenses either. But, I mean, you basically got monsters of the Midway Juniors going up against these teams, and they are making the Bears defense look damn good. But you can obviously see that Caleb Williams is progressing as a quarterback. Been saying it for weeks now. Some of the injuries that they had on offense, those players are starting to come back. Keenan Williams being one guy. And this team is starting to build some steam. Once again, it's not the toughest schedule. It's a pretty damn good schedule for a rookie quarterback coming into the season. You ask any Bears fan, and they will tell you the biggest problem that they have faced for a very long time, and it is the issue at quarterback. It has been a revolving door of below average quarterbacks. It has been a long stated issue, and for once, the Bears are not winning these games they are supposed to win by squeaking by teams. They're blowing out these teams. Granted, it's not a big sample size, but you see what you see on the field. Bears fans can now say that they have a quarterback for the next 15 years. And with what the Bears front office did in the offseason, loading up this offense so that Caleb Williams could hit the ground running, obviously there was going to be a learning curve. We all saw that at the beginning of the season, but they are hitting the ground running now. That has really helped out the Bears team. For a few games this season, the Bears defense, they're not quite the monsters of the Midway that we saw in the 80s. If you're alive at that time. If you're not, YouTube that shit. But they are a damn good defense. And when Caleb Williams needs them to play great, they do. Caleb Williams is progressing week in and week out. He started out rough, but he's becoming more reliable. Let's just go over some numbers. In week 1, Caleb Williams' completion percentage was 48.3. Wow. With a passer rating of 55.7. Not good. Week 2, 62.2 completion percentage with a 51 passer rating. Week 3, 63.5 completion percentage, 80.8 passer rating. Week 4, this is when he starts to turn it on. 73.9 completion percentage, the 106.6 passer rating. Week 5, 69 completion percentage with a 126.2 passer rating. And then this previous week against the Jaguars, a 79.3 completion percentage and a 124.4 passer rating. He started the season as a reckless passer. And now it's looking even more like he is gaining his footing and looking like he is more in control of the offense. And as well as he has been playing, the biggest issue for the Bears is that they are going to run into the division very soon. The Vikings look like they aren't going to lose anytime soon. The Packers and Jordan Love, they're starting to gain some steam, sitting at 4-2, and their defense isn't too shabby themselves. And then you have the Detroit Lions, who have one loss and look like a top 2 team in the NFL. They're well-rounded and well-balanced and explosive on offense, defense, and special teams. Their coaching is near the top of the league, but the Bears do have a quarterback now. I'm not going to say that he's great. I'm not going to say he's a Hall of Famer either. But they have a good quarterback who can lead the Bears offense count. I mean, if you look at the weapons that he has to work with, some of them are going to be around for a while. So if you are an NFC North fan that is not a Bears fan, better strap in. Put in that seatbelt because it might be a long ride. Who knows? We'll see by the end of the season. But back to the weapons. They got Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. Those are a couple of them that are going to be around for a while. What a lot of people don't understand is when you get the quarterback right, a lot of the other stuff just falls into place. Whether it's getting players from free agency, tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, they want to play with a good quarterback. They're not going to walk into an organization that has a subpar quarterback unless they want to get a massive payday. And most players, if they have any type of competitiveness in them, and if they're in the National Football League, they want to play for a contender. But you got to give it to Ryan Poles, the GM for the Bears. He brought in Keenan Allen. He traded for DJ Moore. He drafted Caleb Williams. He brought in another tight end He brought in DeAndre Swift. So now with all these weapons and with the way that Caleb is progressing and evolving, you can start to open up that playbook just a little bit more, which is what they have done in these past couple of weeks. And Caleb Williams has looked electric ever since that has happened. But we all knew the issues that Caleb was going to have coming into the league. Sometimes you're going to have to rein in your quarterback. And they've had to do that a few times, because he does revert back to that backyard football play style where he just runs around if the pocket is collapsing or if his favorite wide receiver isn't open, waiting for him to get open. But if you watched the game at all yesterday, you saw something that was a good sign of things to come. All of the better quarterbacks in the league, they go through their progressions. And you saw yesterday where Caleb Williams was looking right, was looking to the middle, was looking to his left, and then he would throw back to his right. That is the look of a franchise quarterback. That is what you want to see a quarterback do. Lamar Jackson, he had issues with stuff like this. You know, if the first look wasn't open, he would go and scramble. And the same thing with Caleb Williams. He wouldn't run, but he would scramble around just long enough to get one of his guys open, and he realized quickly that is not going to work in the NFL. This is not college football anymore. But most of the time yesterday, he was throwing to his fourth or fifth options. A lot of these rookie quarterbacks, when their first or second option isn't open, they will start to panic, and then they will go scramble, or they would do something stupid and force the ball into coverage. But this NFC North that the Bears are going to have to contend with here very soon is not going to be for the weak of heart. I do not remember the last time I saw an entire division that had 4 of the top 10 offenses in the league. This is the best division in football. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is not a debate. No other division is even close. So if you were going to be looking in the future this season for great games to watch, you're going to be looking up NFC North games, and it is going to be fun to watch, to be able to see how the rest of the season unfolds and see how Caleb Williams can endure and get through this NFC North schedule. Him and Jaden Daniels are already going to be the front runners for the Rookie of the Year. I think it's going to come down to which team goes the furthest. And right now, those teams are toss-ups right now. But Caleb Williams, this is a player that you will want to continue to watch, because he threw 4 touchdowns last game and looked damn good doing it. Now let's jump into a little bit of college football. The new college AP top 25 poll came out after a ridiculous week. I was wondering if the AP voters were going to value more Oregon's win against the top 5 teams, or the Longhorns dominating the Sooners by 31 points and Texas's win, and if Texas would remain the number 1 team in the nation while Oregon and Dylan Gabriel move up 1 spot. Meanwhile, the Ducks, they defeated Ohio State. They fall to number 4 in the rankings, also in the Big Ten, after squeaking out a win out west against the USC. Penn State moves up 1 spot to number 3. The LSU Tigers made their way into the top 10 after their overtime win over Ole Miss. Ridiculous game. They move up to number 8, while their opponent falls heavily. Despite the win to a struggling Florida team, Tennessee falls a few spots, as you see there. That BYU, who remains undefeated and stands atop the Big 12 rankings, only moves up one spot in the latest ranking. You would notice that Oklahoma did drop out of the rankings after the last loss they suffered this past weekend, while SMU was working its way through the rankings after their win to Louisville, moving up 4 spots and for the first time since 1960. Army and Navy both ranked in the same AP poll. There you go, Army. LSU leaping 5 spots into the top 10, despite trailing the entire game, except for overtime against Ole Miss. That is probably my biggest surprise. I think, obviously, that the game of the night, Saturday night, was Ohio State, Oregon. I think the entire world was watching that one in Autzen Stadium. There was minimal separation between the Buckeyes and the Ducks. I think at some point we're going to see them in Indianapolis when they play for the Big Ten championship. Ohio State just simply ran out of time in that game, as you saw with Will Howard sliding down, not having enough time to call that timeout and get that field goal kicker out there and try to win that game. Otherwise, we could have been seeing a different final score there. But I do love that the voters are finally putting some respect on the team's play, on how they play on the field. When you look at the Army, Navy, Iowa State, BYU, they are finally getting their respect in the top 25 poll, because at the end of the day, it's about what you do on the field, how you play the teams that are on your schedule, regardless of the conference that you're in. You put the best 25 out there on the list. That's the way it should be. I think this was an example of the voters doing that. So I'm proud to see that Navy, Iowa State, and BYU received their flowers and got the respect they deserved. Oregon and Ohio State are certainly the two best teams in the Big Ten right now, but Ohio State has no margin for error for the rest of the way. They have to go to Happy Valley in a few weeks. They got to host an unbeaten Indiana team. We'll actually find out how good Indiana is in that game. Also, they are in the top 25. And I think last night, what really surprised me was the way Oregon's offensive line really came to play, and they kept Dylan Gabriel upright. Iowa had a big game, a big win against Washington, too. The LSU Ole Miss game was wild to me, because normally LSU and Ole Miss, they play these wild, crazy type games. So it didn't surprise me. It was shocking that the amount of hype coming into this game and into the season, we saw it play out once again in the big game situation against LSU. And when you talk about LSU, you got to talk about Garrett Nussmeier. He's got to stop turning the ball over. They may have a chance to really blow out teams instead of playing these comeback games from behind, these tight games, because when you look at their schedule, it is laid out in front of LSU the entire rest of the way, because it has some games against Vanderbilt and then Oklahoma. So they have a chance to really rack up some quality wins. Yeah, they could possibly stub their toe against Arkansas, because they have looked really good so far this season. But that's a wild, crazy team, and they could end up upsetting LSU. But LSU could find themselves not only playing for the SEC title, but getting a bye. And it's because of how deflated and come back in these games. So I feel like if Nussmeier can start the games how he tends to finish those games, this is going to be a dangerous team to watch. But college football is in the books for week 7, and Boise State's Ashton Jeanty remains the favorite to win the Heisman. Shocking. The Broncos running back odds moved to plus 160 from plus 225 over the last week. However, an Oregon Duck decided to creep its way up the betting board and is closing in on Jeanty. Dylan Gabriel surged to plus 400 after Oregon's ridiculous 32-31 win over Ohio State. In that game, he threw for 341 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, ran for 32 yards, and had 1 rushing touchdown. Before the matchup, he was sitting at plus 1,500 on the Heisman odds board. Travis Hunter is one notable name missing from my list, though. The 2A Colorado Star was in the number one spot just 2 weeks ago, but he left early on Saturday night with a shoulder injury this week in a 31-28 loss to Kansas State. Hunter finished with just 3 catches for 26 yards as well as 1 tackle on defense. My rankings for the Heisman go as this. These are my top 5. Gabriel at number 1. Dylan Gabriel surpassed the 300-yard mark for just the second time this season as Oregon outlasted Ohio State by a score of 32-31 on Saturday. He finished with 341 yards passing and pair touchdowns, as well as breaking free for a 27-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. His overall numbers for the season aren't very eye-popping, as some of the other candidates on my list. He has thrown for 1,790 yards, 13 touchdowns to 3 interceptions this season. However, his clutch play is what is now the biggest win of the year for any team, propels him to the top. Number 2, Cam Ward. Cam Ward has better stats than Gabriel through this point in the season, but lacks a win of the magnitude of the one the Ducks got this past week. Still, he is tied for the most passing touchdowns in FBS with 20, in addition to an ACC leading 2,219 yards. Miami is off to a 6-0 start for just a third time in the past 20 years, as it looks to make the ACC championship for the first time since 2017. Hurricanes had a bye this past week, but Ward will look to continue his impressive season when they return to action against Louisville on Saturday. Number 3, Ashton Jeanty. There's a real argument for Jeanty as the top Heisman Trophy candidate at this point, as he is on pace for a historic season. The Boise State running back leads the FBS with 1,248 yards, rushing, and 17 touchdowns through only 6 games. This past week, in a 28-7 win against Hawaii, Jeanty topped the 200-yard mark for the third time this season to finish with 217 yards and 1 touchdown. The single season rushing record is 2,628 yards set by Barry Sanders in 1988. And Jeanty really has a good chance of breaking that. Number 4, Cade Klubnik. It's hard to believe that Klubnik is on the Heisman list after his performance in week 1, but the Clemson quarterback has been on a roll ever since that game. After failing to throw a touchdown in the season opener against Georgia, he now has 17 over the past 5 games to only 1 interception. There's an argument to be made about the quality of opponents he has faced in that time span, but those numbers stand out regardless of who a team plays. The junior has the 5th best quarterback rating in the country, according to ESPN, and could find himself a finalist for college football's most coveted award if he keeps it up. And number 5, Carson Beck. Beck put up big numbers in the Bulldogs' 41-31 win over Mississippi State, but this was a game that shouldn't have been as close as the scoreboard read. In addition to his 459 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, Beck also threw a pair of costly picks, one of which came at Georgia's first offensive possession of the game. He did finish with 36 completions to 11 different players, including Arian Smith, who hauled in 5 catches for a game-high 134 yards and a touchdown. Next up for Georgia is probably going to be the game of the week, where Georgia has to travel to Texas to take on the Longhorns. That is it for today's episode. I hope you furtherly enjoyed it with joy and happiness. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and do so. That way you do not miss out on a single episode, a single short. We will be posting them throughout the week. So just go ahead and click that subscribe button. You would be helping me out a lot. Let's grow the Hot Zone Sports brand together. Join the Hot Zone Sports fam. And until next time, Hot Zone Sports and the Burn out. Peace.